All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to Soul of the SKOL. We've got a combo back today that is not just Matt and Sam for once. I'm here again. Still Big Lou-less. He's in Oklahoma as far as we know. We haven't heard from him in a bit again. We did for a little bit. He had his phone and we texted him, but now he's back off the face of the earth, so we don't really know where he is. And Sam O is working pretty much every day, so he's a busy boy, which is good, making his money, easing up the college debt if he has any. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, here we go. We've got a few different things. Today is just kind of a hodgepodge kind of a show. It's also like the dead of the off season in the middle of summer. Well, not for the Vikings because they have action at all times of the year because they're the Vikings. But for the rest of the NFL, this is the dead point where nothing happens until training camp. The players report next week. So that's kind of that. We got a few different things we're going to get into today. We're going to kick it off, I think, with... I'm going to change the order a little bit. We're going to kick it off with kind of the most recent news, then go into the next thing, and then we have a ranking and predictions. So we're going to kick it off with this. Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison was arrested on Friday night yet again for the second time in his young NFL career. I'll pull up the police report in a minute, but it was near LAX, so the airport in LA, and he was...
Sounds like he was asleep at the wheel.
Allegedly under the influence. We'll see. I've also seen, I don't know if you guys have seen, I've also seen it may not have been alcohol. It might have been weed. He was under the influence of weed, I've heard. But we'll see. We don't really know anything yet. So that's that. And he fell asleep, but not on the shoulder, in the road. Bro was in the road. It was like 11 p.m. I'll pull up the police report and we can read a little about it. But does this... How do we say this? Does anyone have any thoughts on this? Then we can have some deeper discussions, I guess, too. But where do we want to start?
I think the first thought that came to my mind when I saw this was your teammate just died a week ago from a very similar situation. He died in an accident involving alcohol at high speeds. Obviously, Jordan Addison was not going high speeds. He was sitting in a lane of traffic on what comparatively is similar to I-94, which is insane. I cannot believe he didn't get hit. But, I mean, your teammate just died a week ago from a drunk driver. How are you going to do this? How immature, how selfish, how... I don't know. It's just, it seems insensitive.
Yeah, it does. So the information, it was 11 p.m. Pacific time because he was in LA on Friday night. And it says an officer arrived in a white Rolls Royce with Jordan Addison. He was asleep behind the wheel in the road. It's like, okay, it's one thing if you pull over to the shoulder and do that. Obviously, it's not good, but it's better. I'm legitimately wondering, how do you fall asleep in the lanes of the road? How? Like, did he fall asleep while he was driving and then stopped, or did he just say, all right, we're going to put her in park and take a snooze? I mean, that really doesn't matter to this story because that's just random stuff that you think about. But still, no, how do you just, how can you just do that? With that said, what do you guys think is going to happen from here? Do you think there's going to be any sort of a punishment with him, or is it just going to be Kevin O'Connell and him sit down and have a long discussion about not being, for lack of a better word, stupid? How do you...
I think...
Is the NFL going to do something, or is the team going to do something, or is it just kind of going to be we talk about it, we realize you made a mistake again, and then we all move on and hope it gets better?
I watched the first half of Receiver, Joel, and I think you watched all of it. Matt, you maybe watched the first couple episodes as well. I know in episode 2, after the Eagles lost, where the Vikings absolutely just turned the ball over every single drive, like unbelievable turnover game. you see, or you hear, I should say, Kevin O'Connell absolutely laying into the team. F in this, F in that. You know, you guys don't care enough about this game. If he said that after losing a football game, how do you think he's going to react to Jordan Addison driving drunk after his teammate was just killed in a drunk driving accident? And maybe not driving drunk, but driving under the influence in a situation where his teammate was just killed in a similar situation. I don't think this is going to be a good thing for Jordan Addison. I think that, I mean, the NFL is going to probably suspend him for a couple of games, whether that be late this season or next season. It's going to take a while for those charges to process. He hasn't been charged yet. So it probably will not be early this season, if at all. But, I mean, we saw what Kevin O'Connell will do when you lose. How is he going to react when you do something that could have gotten yourself or someone else killed?
Yeah.
I really have no words. I think, Sam, you just hit it on the head. It's going to be more than just O'Connell in there. It's going to be Quasey. It's going to be a lot of higher ups as well. The message will just be grow up.
Mm-hmm.
You make millions of dollars. Call an Uber. Call a Lyft.
Well, and the thing is the NFL has that service where you can call them as a player, as a coach, as any employee of the NFL. You can just call them and they'll come and pick you up anywhere you are.
Mm-hmm.
Just call the NFL.
Yeah.
Or call an Uber. Spend $100 on an Uber.
Mm. Another thing I'll say, I think this is another thing Kevin O'Connell is going to say when they talk about it. And no, what I'm about to say, this doesn't make anything right or anything, but if it was like a depth player that doesn't get much action on your team, that's a little different. Not that that makes it right, because it obviously doesn't, but this guy's a leader on your team. He's one of your top receivers. He's someone that young players, young draft picks come into your team and they look up to because he's been successful in the NFL. Granted, he's young as well. It's only in his second season. He's probably 22 years old, 23. I don't know what he is, but around that,
22.
approximately. Yeah. But he's someone that your team is going to model after and that they're going to look up to. And I think this is one thing that I'll say I like about Justin Jefferson a lot is he's a great model. He's a great role model for the most part. And you look at him, he mostly doesn't really have any character issues. He's just a nice guy. He comes in, puts in the work, cares about what he's doing, and he's pretty humble, I'd say. Sometimes on the field he lets it show, but that's different because he's a competitor. But yeah, he just loves the sport and he wants to be a leader. He's a natural leader. And that's one thing I'll say I don't think about Jordan Addison. He's not a natural leader. He has to learn to be a leader. And he's making mistakes now. And that doesn't mean he can't get over that and become a leader. But it's definitely something he's going to have to work on, being one of those people that young players look up to in the locker room. He's a staple for this team. And you just said it too. I think that idea comes from, you talked about how they said something as part of that Eagles game after it. He said something about, we got to protect this football. It's our franchise. Like, I'm trying to remember exactly how he said it. I don't remember the quote, but something about it like we've worked years and years and like this is the mini version of our franchise. We have to protect it. We have to show that we're a good team. I think this is almost what I'm saying doesn't really make sense now that I think about it. It made sense in my head. It doesn't in words, whatever. This is like the same thing where this team's been around 60 years now, over that. And this is the new era of the team. Jordan Addison is he's representing this team. They've never been successful, I should say. The team hasn't ever really been successful, so this is the team to become successful, and he's one of the leaders in that. So I think that's what Kevin O'Connell kind of meant, is that in a way there's pressure almost on the franchise because they've been a high-end franchise, but they've never been able to win a Super Bowl. Like, you guys are representing this team now. Be better on the field and off the field. What I'm saying didn't really make sense, but I tried my best, so... Yeah, it made a lot of sense in my head. Did not make a lot of sense in words. But yeah, that's kind of that. I think with that, unless anyone else has thoughts on that, we can probably start talking a little more about this because we've kind of delved into it a little bit now. So we had the receiver series come out on Wednesday of last week. Some people have watched the whole show. I have. Sam said he's about halfway through or so. Matt, I think you're about the same, similar to that. So that's that. Justin doesn't appear in the first episode, nor does he really appear in the last episode either. He does in like the last scene of the last episode. They talk a little about his extension. That's about it. So he doesn't really do much in that. But yeah, I was interested going into this series just to see if we could learn more about his personal life off the field, because we know him on the field, great player. And I think that's what we learned a lot about Kirk last year is we've seen him on the field. We kind of know about him off the field, but not really a whole lot. His wife, his family, none of that. And we got to learn a lot about his at-home life. For me, I know you guys aren't really done with it yet, but we'll share some reviews, and at least from what you guys have seen so far. For the Justin Jefferson portion of this show, the whole show I thought was really well done again, per usual. Netflix is good at this. The Justin Jefferson part of it, I was a little underwhelmed, I feel like, with it. I feel like I didn't learn that much about him. He was what I expected. He goes in, cares a lot about what he does, and then goes home. But we didn't learn that much about his personal life, nor in the rest of the series. You're going to see he doesn't really talk about it, other than he's got his personal chef, watches film, plays video games, eats his candy. That's about it.
Joel, I think I'm going to disagree with you that we don't learn much about his personal life. I think that is his personal life. I think he's just a really simple, kind of an introvert when he's.
He has a low-key life, very low-key life. He doesn't have a wife or family.
He lives in a townhome, in a duplex townhome. The one of the top 5 players in the NFL lives in a duplex townhome, right? I mean, you don't expect that. You expect a guy like him, and you see him on the field, and he goes by jets, right? And he's got the huge jet chain and all these, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry at every game. And he goes home to a townhome. Like he's flashy on the field. He's flashy in public, but when he's at home, I think he just lives a very simple, regular life. I mean, I guess that's the best way to put it. And that's not a bad thing in my opinion, because he's not like Jordan Addison where he's getting arrested for driving drunk or driving 140 miles an hour on the freeway, right? And I think that his parents are also, they just seem very simple, very, very like regular people. You know what I mean? Like Justin Jefferson, I'm sure if you knew him personally, you would know, other things, but he seems from the public eye like just a very simple, low-key, introverted guy that loves video games and candy.
Mm-hmm. I'll say it was perfect. You just brought up family. Unless Matt has a thought on that, I was going to go to kind of the next point about the show, was families. We saw Amon-Ra St. Brown in this show, and his dad is a wild bodybuilder back in his heyday, still looks probably really good.
Multi-time Mr. Universe.
And so, yeah, he's pushed his kids, both him and his brother, Equanimous St. Brown, to be pro athletes. He's like, that's what you guys are going to be. Doesn't matter what you think. I'm going to make you guys athletes. And it worked because they're both pro NFL football players now. But it was awesome. It was kind of funny seeing how much he worked them and he cared about it. And then on the opposite, we have Justin Jefferson, who his family is normal. Like, they're just normal people. And I mean, they're obviously definitely athletically talented, as his brother was also a college football player as well.
I think both his brothers were, if I'm not mistaken. I think the one played safety and the other played quarterback.
Jordan Jefferson, yep.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it was just funny seeing how different they were, how the St. Browns they grind every day, even as kids, all the way up until now still. And Amon-Ra carries that with him because he cares a lot about what he does and working out and everything and all that.
I think Justin Jefferson the difference between him and Amon-Ra St. Brown is that Amon-Ra St. Brown has, like you said, literally has grinded every single day of his entire life. And Justin Jefferson was given absolute God-given talent with a great work ethic. And I think his parents definitely helped with that. I think his parents seem like they're the kind that were very strict when he was young, right? When he was in, elementary, middle, high school. I think that if something big were to happen in Jefferson's life, they would still step in, right? Like if Jefferson was doing the stuff that Jordan Addison was doing, I think his parents would step in and be like, you need to stop this now, right? I think his parents they're very like simple but disciplined, right? So I think that definitely helped with Jefferson's work ethic, but you look at their backgrounds, and even like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, I mean, obviously those guys have been working and working and working their whole life. And it's not that Justin Jefferson didn't work ever. I think he just had the absolute God-given talent that no one has ever seen before.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like Justin Jefferson was like just born athletically skilled, whereas the St. Browns weren't, but they were able to work to get that. So
exactly,
that was interesting. And then as far as like the other people on the show, Kittle and Deebo and Devontae, we didn't really see their parents, so they didn't talk that much about during the show about their like growing up or anything. So we don't know a whole lot about them. But so really it was just Amon-Ra and Justin were the only two we could kind of see their families.
And I also think that those two are just big family men in general. Like I think Justin Jefferson, when he hangs out with people, I think he hangs out with his family. I think that's just what he is. I mean, he's a big family man. You see it, in the series, he's with his family all the time. They're at every single game, right? I think the St. Browns are the same way. I see, Amon-Ra is always with his parents, and it's unfortunate for him because his girlfriend lives halfway across the country. I think she lives in Orange County in LA. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I see a very much of a difference between like Davante Adams and Justin Jefferson. Like Justin Jefferson gives off super bubbly, super warm, like just always just bursting with energy, big family man, right? And I think Davante Adams comes off as kind of cold, very like not exciting, but lives a much more rich lifestyle, we'll say. Mm-hmm. He just like, you see his house with, the birthday party for his daughter, and, the house is enormous. They have a huge pool in the backyard, right? I think that's the main difference between them, is that Davante is just he has a very cold personality. And Jefferson is just a very like warm and bubbly and exciting kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. So let's just talk about like kind of what's now that we've watched this show, what's your opinions on each of these guys? Justin Jefferson, we all know, we like him, simple guy, lets it show on the field. That's kind of that. And like, kind of, is there anything you learned about these people, which we've kind of been talking about, but as we go around the list, so like, I guess we'll go to Amon-Ra, who we've kind of been talking about. Like, do you like this player more or less now that you've watched this show? Does your respect for that player grow? Do you feel a little less respect toward that player? That kind of a thing. I think we could all agree that Amon-Ra, we probably feel more. I've always liked Amon-Ra, especially as a player. I just like watching him. Really good. He was, I think, a 4th-round pick. It's hard not to just root for that underdog where they work their way up a lot like he did.
I think he's absolutely electric on the field too.
Yeah. And sometimes everyone always expects you're going to get that big player in like the 1st round or 2nd round, but it's always nice seeing a player in the late rounds that no one expects, especially with him. Even we had that with Stephon Diggs. I think he was a 4th-round pick, and we've had our share of those. So that kind of a thing. But I mean, I liked Amon-Ra to start, and I like him even more now. I I like him. I like the Lions. I know Viking fans obviously a lot of times don't, but I just have a respect for the Lions that I enjoy watching them on the field, off the field. There's just something about that team that even though they're a division rival, I can't hate the Lions. I just like them.
I'm with you, and I think what really made me have so much extra respect for Amon-Ra St. Brown was the fact that he played in a football game with hand, foot, and mouth disease. And the reason for this
That
is
was
because
wild.
over Christmas break, I contracted hand, foot, and mouth disease. I can absolutely confirm that anytime you touch something with the bottoms of your feet with your hands, it literally feels like needles, like nails, like you're walking on nails everywhere. And that was just walking around in my house, right? He played in an NFL football game feeling like he was walking on needles, feeling like every time he touched the ball, like it was like nails being pushed into his hand. I cannot imagine. I couldn't imagine playing a flag football game with hand, foot, and mouth disease. I wouldn't do it. There's no way. I was in so much pain on my hands and feet. And he played in an NFL football. That amount of like the amount of discipline and the amount of like grit that takes, I have so much more respect for it. So much.
I think he only missed one game all year. And like you said, he had hand, foot, and mouth disease, played through it, and I think he tore his oblique completely off the bone.
Yep.
Only missed one game all year. These players, I mean, we already knew that they're never 100% healthy, but I don't think anyone really like expected some of the things they play through, like that kind of stuff. Especially Justin Jefferson too. We knew he had his chest injury or whatever it was against Vegas, but
I didn't realize it was coughing blood.
Anyone knew he was coughing up blood on the sideline, and I think we did know he was taken to the hospital, but that wasn't until like the day after. I don't think we knew about that, but whatever. Like, yeah, I think it's just wild seeing some of these injuries and the stuff these guys go through that none of us ever know about. The information doesn't get to just a fan, some of this stuff. So these are tough players on a weekly basis. And yeah, good kudos to them. Anyone else got any thoughts on Justin or Amon-Ra? Otherwise, we can keep moving kind of down the list of players. Otherwise, we got next, I guess we can go with the two Niners last. We had Davante Adams. Now, personally, I think a lot of us Viking fans can say, obviously he's a former Packer. A lot of us can say we don't like Aaron Rodgers, really. Not a very likable guy. He's just kind of weird. You know, he just brings weird vibes in your locker room. That's that. But Davante Adams is someone, as a Packer, and obviously for us as a Viking fan, I never disliked Davante Adams. He's a good player. He doesn't do anything like weird off the field. He's just kind of a guy. He just plays football and he's good at it, and that's kind of that. But watching this show, I think I seem to like him a lot, and he's just out there trying to compete. And it was hard seeing him with the Raiders, and he's out there. I don't know if you guys have gotten this episode or not, but he's like with Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's just done with Garoppolo because he's such a bad quarterback. And he actually he's like, I've never taken this many hits in my effing life. I need to get out of here. Like, that's crazy seeing that.
He said, I need to get the F out of here. I've never taken this many. I mean, he talks about the Jimmy G hospital ball so often.
That was wild seeing that. That's one thing I think he was, and then he talked about, was it him? Yeah, he talked with Brian Hoyer when Brian Hoyer was, I don't know if you guys have gotten to this part yet. Yeah. Brian Hoyer's the quarterback at one part, and he's like, it's not your fault. Like, he's pretty much just saying without saying, you're just bad, which is kind of funny. I laughed at that. But I think that was a lot different too than like Justin Jefferson, because Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs were out there throwing hospital balls sometimes, especially in Vegas when Dobbs did it. But Justin doesn't say anything. He just takes the hit and moves on. Or if he's hurt, he takes it on himself. So I thought that was kind of a funny difference. But yeah, I don't mind Davante Adams at all. He's a competitor, really good player. You can tell he just wants to be successful, but he keeps getting stuck, especially recently with just bad situations and bad organizations.
I think
that kind of thing.
for him, I think what would be the best move for his upcoming years, he needs to go to a team that needs a wide receiver and has a chance at a Super Bowl. Team like the Chiefs, team like the Bills, someone like that, where they don't have a true wide receiver one and they need one. And he needs a good quarterback who's actually going to trust him in one-on-one situations to make a contested grab in the red zone, right? I think he says it in there. He's got the third most red zone touchdowns of all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to trust your number one receiver. You have to. You don't have a choice. You absolutely have to, and especially if it's Davante Adams, right? Davante Adams, we see so many clips in that of him just mossing defenders, like catching balls around them. He's so talented, and being stuck in Vegas I think he's like actually becoming, maybe depressed isn't the right word for it, but he's like, this sucks. I hate it here. I don't want to be here. I came here to play with my college teammate and he's gone now. Get me out of here. Get me a ring.
He knows he's better than the team, but so he has to, either the team has to get better or he's got to just get out of this situation. I've also seen things recently about him maybe going to the Jets or the Jets having interest in him. Understandably, Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams. Imagine him with the Jets. That would go crazy.
Him and Rodgers again.
And Garrett Wilson, and if they hung on to him, obviously, and dude, that'd go crazy out there. So that was kind of that. It was also, yeah, you brought up that stat the one time. Their lack of targets, they just didn't throw the ball to him. He's such a good player. He makes so many great catches and great plays, and they didn't throw the ball. And yet, like you said, he's like, I've got like the third most red zone touchdowns of all time, and they aren't even giving me a chance. Like, that's wild. But we'll see. Maybe this is a new era with the Raiders. You could just tell how much his attitude changed after they got rid of Josh McDaniels too. And I mean the whole team, but especially him. Before that, he was like, I'm cooked. This organization's cooked. I need to get out of here. And then they got rid of McDaniels, and it was actually fun again. And they just went out there and had fun. And if we win, that's great. If we lose, it's just kind of whatever. But we just want to go out there and have fun and prove to ourselves that we are a good team. Which, if they can carry that into this year, I think the Raiders could be a good team. But that's all an if. So we'll see.
One last thing I want to mention about Davante. So you brought up the whole Brian Hoyer situation that came from Davante. He's got an end zone fade, and Hoyer throws it way over his head, right? Like 10 feet past him. Like no chance
I remember this now.
Catching it, right? Not a chance that he's catching that. And he's sitting on the sideline. He's got a towel on his head, and Brian Hoyer comes up to him, and he's like, hey, man, it's either I throw it over your head and we get the field goal, or, that was the only situation. That was the only option. Mm-hmm. And Davante's literally like, yeah, it's not your fault. And he's like Joel said, like, it's not your fault. You just suck. You're just terrible.
My favorite Davante Adams moment was probably when they sat in the interview. They're like, how'd you feel about Jimmy Garoppolo getting benched? He goes, oh, I signed off on it. Very
he was like,
oh, yeah, yes. I was the one who told him to do it.
I was the number one supporter of that happening.
Yeah, exactly.
He did say something about, they were winning, and he was like, well, if I'm not getting my targets or the offense isn't looking good, it doesn't really matter because it's all about my legacy in the end. Kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but at the same time, he's playing in Vegas. He's losing.
I think that was also just a way of him trying to get out of Vegas and show I'm a better player than this team is. I need to go somewhere that's going to let me show off my talent. But, we'll see here. Otherwise, we got the Niners. Speaking of the Niners, I don't know if you guys have seen this yet on your phones. You probably have by now because it's been a little bit. Brandon Ayuk has requested a trade from the Niners after failed extension talks. So
no, that happens.
Didn't Debo request a trade at 1.2, or maybe not? I don't even know.
He did, yeah. But then they ultimately gave him a contract he wanted. All that was just bluff for the 49ers to finally just give him a contract.
I think that was right after his second season, if I'm not mistaken, that he requested the trade.
Yeah. Well, as we move into the Niners, I guess we can talk about Debo. So, Debo, I don't know. To me, I'm sorry, he's not that likable. I don't know. He's okay, but he just whatever.
I think I like him more than I did, and more than I did previous to watching the show. And here's why. He is obviously one of the most vital parts of their offense. He plays wide receiver, he plays running back, he's catching, he's rushing, he's got, 200 yards rushing or whatever last season, and another 800 receiving, 900 receiving, whatever it was, right? Plus missing games. I think they overuse him. And because wide receivers, as we see on this show, they take huge hits. Every single player on that show got injured at some point during the season.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. Running backs get even more banged up. So now he's taking a double beating. He's getting, twice as many touches as anyone else on the team. He's running it up the middle. He's getting pounded by linebackers. He's outside, getting absolutely demolished by safeties and corners and whatever. What did he hurt initially? Was it like shoulder or something like that? I think he had a stress fracture in his scapula or something like
Hairline fracture, yeah.
Hairline fracture, yeah. And I don't know. I think I like him a little bit more. He seems like he's a good dad. On the field, though, he's insufferable. He is the most annoying, starting fights and stuff like that. And he headbutted a player, and the refs are talking to him like, dude, you can't do that.
That was that was another
whatever.
That headbutt was a good example. That was just dumb. It's like, I don't even remember what was happening. It's like it was the Browns game
with the Browns, yeah.
The Browns are talking whatever, but it's like you don't gotta headbutt them. You're the one that's sure they're annoying, but you don't have to retaliate.
He's a bigger person.
Just
don't stoop to their level.
Shut your mouth and walk to the sideline and show it during the game that you're better than them. Like you don't gotta do that. So that was its own thing. Also,
let the defensive players be aggressive like that.
Yeah. Speaking of dad, I will say I like Davante Adams. Just watching him as a dad to his two little girls. I don't know. It was just really cute.
Another guy that seems like a good dad. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I liked him. So that was that.
Another favorite part was probably when they had people over for the birthday party. And it was like families as well. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, you have a big house. And it's like, who's this? And he goes, hi, I'm Davante Adams. And it's like, what do you do?
I thought that was so funny because he was like, yeah, some of them just didn't know me.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Which I think is fine. You don't always want to be the center of attention.
Fine. But at the same time, could you imagine bringing your son over to, his classmate's birthday party and you're like, oh my God, this house is 20,000 square feet big. What's happening right now? Who are these people, right? Because they always meet, their mom, and she obviously, I think she stays at home, maybe. I don't think she works much. She doesn't have to because Davante's making millions. But they always see her, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, so you must be her dad. What do you do for work? And he's like, oh, I play for the Raiders.
Oh, are you good?
They're like, what?
Are you any good? Just a montage starts playing. Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm not bad.
Yeah, that was. I bet none of these players' wives or girlfriends really have much of their own career, much other than Amon-Ra's girlfriend, who they talked. Well, I don't know. Maybe you've got to. Well, if you saw the Orange County part, then you would know this. She's going to nursing school, I think. Yeah. So that means you would have, seen that.
And I think Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, I think both of their wives are in fashion, aren't they?
Olivia. Christian's now wife is what's an Instagram model, and then Kyle Juszczyk's wife,
his wife is the one that's in fashion, right?
Yeah,
and there was some Niners player,
George Kittle. What was her name?
Claire.
She played college basketball at Iowa. That's how they met.
That's right.
But as Joel just said, you don't really have to work when your husband's raking in millions.
Exactly.
Tough too when they're traveling so much. As a pro football player, I mean, they're constantly. I mean, someone has to take care of their kids too, if they have kids, of course.
Yeah.
When you're husband, the football player, is gone almost every day at the facility, and then you're traveling every week or however much you are.
Quickly on Debo, he obviously played for South Carolina, and I don't know if you can tell, it's kind of the rival. So I'm obligated to not like him. But I feel like the reason why some people might have hate him more is because his teammate's George Kittle, this bubbling ball of energy, just celebrations, just
But he's got the F Dallas shirt.
F Dallas. He's like, no one else would wear it. Like, you guys are all losers. And he's like,
yeah, he gave it to like the whole offensive line or something.
None
like
of them
that.
wore it.
None of them wore it.
I love that there was a whole like little section to like, how much do you think I'm gonna get fined for this? And he goes, it was $15,000. I'd do it again. He's just a likable guy.
To them, it's like $1 to us.
That's pocket change.
Yeah,
but yeah,
nothing.
You take such a likable guy, and then you try to, you put Debo in the same situation. Obviously, not the same person, I guess. So maybe that might have had a little bit to do with that. But obviously, when you talk about George Kittle, just a good guy. Liked why he does this on first downs is from the WWE or
have no fear, I think is what it meant, right?
Yeah, no fear.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing I want to point out. So we talked about how Devontae's, his daughter's classmates' families, some of them didn't know who he was, right? That made me think. So Justin Jefferson, right? He lives in a duplex townhome, right? Do you think his next door neighbor knows who he is or what he does?
I would think so.
Probably, especially considering like the nice Mercedes cars that are parked outside too.
Right.
You'd have to walk over there when they move in and say, "Yo, who are you?"
What do you do for a living?
Like, no,
I do crypto.
I do crypto. No, you just go next door. You're like, housewarming gift. It's cookies or whatever. You knock on the door and it's Justin Jefferson, and you're just like,
he's wearing $100,000 of jewelry.
Oh, thanks for the. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I feel like giddy with excitement because it's junk food.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know. That's just so nuts to me that he is like just lives in like a normal home, even though he's like a multi-millionaire.
I had a friend, this is off topic, but his grandparents lived across the street from Joe Mauer.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't know what it's like to live next to,
I would love to know.
Insane athlete.
Live next to, or just like any celebrity
or any athlete. Living next to a guy like Cam Bynum would be cool.
Right, yeah.
You could get free stuff.
One of my friends has so Cam Bynum's Filipino, of course. I have a friend who's Filipino. He lives in South St. Paul, and Cam Bynum does a lot for the Filipino community in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so he's met Cam Bynum multiple times. He's hung out with him before, all sorts of stuff like that. So another cool Viking, does a lot of good stuff for the community. There's a lot of them that do.
You get a platform like that and you use it for good, like Cam Bynum and Kirk Cousins as well, and a lot of NFL players. That's just really cool to see.
I was telling, maybe I said this on a past episode. I don't remember if I did or not. Me and Matt have a cousin that actually lives in Invergrove Heights, and they said at one time they thought that Justin Jefferson lived down the street from them because they'd seen people down the road had seen him getting in and out of vehicles there, unless just he had a friend that lived there too. And I think it was kind of a thing where it was a townhouse. So then I just kind of assumed, well, he's probably living in a house now, so it's not there anymore. Maybe it is. I was surprised. I was surprised we got outside shots of his house. I did.
Yeah, right.
I thought that was a little weird. I was like,
also a bit of a security concern for him. I don't know.
That's a little weird that we're showing the outside of his house. It's different for unless it's a gated community, but I don't think it is because I've been around that area. If that's where it is, I've been there and it's not. But like, whereas we saw the outside of like the Kittle's house, but it's probably gated with crazy security. But like,
I think all of them live in gated communities, other than St. Brown and Jefferson. Just because St. Brown's so new to the NFL, I think.
Yeah.
But all of them live in gated communities, enormous houses.
So I thought it was a little weird that like we just saw the outside of the house. Like anyone could find it on Google Maps and just show up, and there's probably nothing's gonna happen. And we know he's got all of his valuables inside.
And I honestly, I'm sure that the people in that area know, like, this is Justin Jefferson's house. I think everyone in that area knows it.
Probably,
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
protect it for him.
Well, right. And here's the thing: if something were to happen to him, the NFL would help.
Yeah,
because he is such an integral part of the NFL now that I don't think they'd have a choice. The Vikings would help. The NFL Association would help. I just don't think that there's anything like if his house gets broken into, like as long as he's not hurt, okay, maybe it already has been and we just don't know about it.
So then another thing I saw, I don't remember if this was during the documentary, if this was just a different interview he had, I should say. He said he lives 4 minutes away from the facility. Well, I just pulled up the neighborhood on Google Maps and plugged in the facility, and they're 4 minutes apart. So I might know. So later, we'll just say I might go on Google Maps later. I don't care if you guys know. Obviously, I'm not going to publicly tell people where it is.
Well, yeah.
Matt, also, I think you might not know. You might not remember where it is, but have you ever been there? Were you ever at their house at all?
Maybe once years ago.
Okay. They also used to live down the street from like Mike Remmer's. Athletes have lived there before because it's Inver Grove Heights. So I'll do some digging and research later and see if I can find his house. I'll get back to you guys if I can find that maybe he lives there. But we'll see. That was just kind of random. But yeah, I thought it was kind of weird. They were showing some exterior shots of his whole house. It'd be weird if it was like a zoomed in shot of just like the front door or something, because that'd be tough to find it. But when you're showing their whole house,
zoom in shot on his street sign,
it's a little strange.
Is the numbers outside the house, his mailing address.
So yeah,
Social security card.
I think we've all concluded it was a little weird that there was outside shots of his house, but whatever, that's his choice. So that's that. With that said, I think we've gotten pretty good into the receiver series. Good show, learned things. Some guys we liked more, some guys we like a little less, but not really. We enjoyed the show. That was kind of that. Are we going to move on, we think, now?
I would think
so. That covers it pretty well. So we've got this. We should make a documentary on Big Lou. I know that's a random thought and it just popped in my head, but Big Lou's life, imagine that as a documentary. That'd go crazy.
Oh my God, dude. I would watch that over and over and over again.
The day in the life of Big Lou.
Oh my God.
And then his life story.
What do you mean? You guys would be in it.
Yeah, I know.
That's okay. It'd be
entertaining. Watch it over and over again.
Yes. Just so I can see Big Lou all the time because I miss him so much because I've talked to him one time this entire summer.
Big Lou getting bullied for no real reason. That's like all of the whole story.
The whole story.
Him getting bullied for no real reason just because he's Big Lou. Big Lou mispronouncing names. That can be part of the Big Lou saying things wrong. That'll be part of the documentary, one of the segments in it. But yeah, that was a random thought I had, is I'd love a Big Lou documentary. But with that said, we are going to rank all the NFL head coaches. So me and Sam have both come up with lists. Matt has come up with something a little different. He made a tier ranking. So with that said, I'll pull that up and then we will decide how we would like to do this. So there we go. That is our spreadsheet. He has made a tier ranking of coaches. We've made this. Are we going to say that? How do we want to do this? Anyone got an idea of what's the most fun way of going through
this? Can we just like completely take out all of the rookie head coaches or like the new head coaches, I should say, other than maybe Jim Harbaugh?
Sure.
Because I think, Matt, those are probably going to be in your unknown, right?
Maybe.
How about we can do this? Mr. Matt here. I was gonna say, yeah, you can unveil each category, and then we go through each person and say where we had them ranked.
Actually,
Yeah.
I
then-
like that better.
And then we can kind of say, and then at the end we can say like kind of what our list was and why and defend or whatever. So he has unveiled the new coaches. I have the new coaches pretty much mostly at the bottom, and I'm sure you probably do too, for the most part, at least.
Yeah, all of mine were near the bottom.
The only unknown or new coach I didn't put in there was Dan Quinn because he's had some previous NFL experience. Now,
Fair.
weirdly enough, I put Jim Harbaugh in unknown. He's been in the college ranks for so long. The NFL has changed since the last time he's been an NFL head coach, to see how he adapts to the new NFL. That's kind of my thought process, is to putting him in the unknown section.
Yeah, that sounds good. So we can look at his list here. So he's got these guys. So I had, how do you even say it? Dave Canales? Canales. I had him at 31. Don't know like anything about him. So don't really know.
He's a good offensive coordinator with Tampa Bay, but 31 might be a generous spot just given what the situation he's going to inherit.
Yeah, I didn't really know. Also, I'll say this. I said this off mic, didn't say it on the podcast. I kind of ranked my list based on who would I want to hire right now as my head coach, that kind of a thing. So that's why I think a lot of these guys are on the bottom, because we just don't know who they are.
After one season, we'll get a better idea.
Yeah. I put him at 31. I put Brian Callahan, new hire for the Titans, former, I believe Bengals OC. Is that right? I think.
Yep.
I put him at 29. Don't know much about him. He's there for me. I put Mike McDonald. He's the new Seattle head coach. He was the DC of the Ravens, I believe. Is that right?
Yep.
I put him at 28. Also don't know that much about him. Jared Mayo, I put at 25. He's had a lot of experience as a player and as a coach, and I just kind of know him, so that was why I did that. Who else is on that list?
Raheem Morris, former Rams defensive coordinator.
Raheem Morris, I had 24, so right above Mayo. He's been a head coach before. The Falcons are a good situation, too. They have a good roster, so I think that could help them. The Bucs were kind of bad back in that era when he was previously a head coach. Dan Quinn, I put at 23. Been a head coach. Don't know much. He's also in Washington, which is kind of a weird situation, but we'll see. And then who are the other ones we had that were new coaches? Harbaugh, and is that it? Or is there another one? I'm trying to look through my list.
No, that was
Morris, Canales, Mayo, McDonald, Callahan, Harbaugh.
So Harbaugh's the only one I didn't have. Harbaugh is high on my list. Jim Harbaugh should have been the Vikings head coach. Personal opinion still. I had him all the way up at number 5. I would like having Jim Harbaugh as my head coach.
Wow.
I still like him a lot. I know it's been a long time since he was in the NFL last. That was, 10-ish years ago, maybe even a little more than that. But he was very successful with the Niners. A lot of wins, NFC Championship appearances. They couldn't make it over that. And yeah, I'd still like to have. I know Viking fans might disagree. I would still rather have Jim Harbaugh than Kevin O'Connell as my head coach. I like Jim Harbaugh back when they hired Kevin O'Connell. Still like him to this day. Yeah, I'm very high on Harbaugh.
It's good to have opinions. It's also okay to be wrong once in a while, but
Sure is. So that is my new head coaches list. Everyone I think I said was 23 or below except for Harbaugh. So, yeah.
all right.
I'm just not even going to go with mine at all. Just move on to the next one. I don't know head coaches like you guys do.
Okay.
I don't really either. This is also the dead of the off season, trying to find something to do.
We're trying to find content. Pump out content, unlike last summer where we just took a break for like 3 months.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Anything.
Maybe nice to argue on here once in a while. Maybe draw up our engagement.
Yeah.
I didn't have an F ranking because, frankly, when I graded coaches, I didn't see any of them as an F coach.
I disagree, but okay.
I also have a couple.
I see at
I
least
didn't even.
that should be an F.
Spoiler alert, my number 32 coach is not a first-year coach.
My D ranks are Jonathan Gannon, Dennis Allen, and Brian Dable.
All right. I will say, for all the folks who know, I'm a Brian Dable hater. I don't like him. He's not a good coach. The Giants need to blow it up and just restart everything. They need help. Brian Dable is my 32. I'm sorry.
Yikes.
I don't like him. And then we've got Jonathan Gannon. He's my number 30. He's only been around.
Fire in your
season.
gut?
What?
You got fire in your gut?
Gannon only been around one season. He was with Arizona, but the whole team was bad. So that was its own kind of thing. That Eagles defense was good. He was the DC there, but they also weren't like I don't feel like they were like outstanding either. So that's just my opinion. I'm not that big of a Gannon guy. And then Dennis Allen I had at 27. He hasn't been super successful with the Saints. Saints are just a weird team because they're always like competitive. They're like the Vikings right now, but worse. Where like they're always competitive, but instead of being
good.
like a 9-8 team, they're more of like a 6-10 or a 6-11 kind of a team. That's how I feel about the Saints. They're just mediocre, but a level below that. But they're kind of consistent with it. So that's my opinion on those guys.
Gannon I had at, and this is out of 26 because I took off all those unknown guys. I had Gannon at 26. I think Jonathan Gannon.
Fair.
The Cardinals had an atrocious season last year. Jonathan Gannon did not help that at all. And it really, I think it started when that team meeting early in the offseason. Maybe not early in the offseason, early into like fall camp or whatever, summer camp. He goes, "You got fire in your gut?" And I think everyone watching that was like, "What did he just say? What do you mean, do you have fire in your gut? What does that even mean?" Right? And the way he said it was like, "You got fire in your gut?" Super nonchalant, super chill.
Now, no emotion to it.
No emotion, yeah. And so, like, I feel like if another coach were to say those exact words, they would have to be like a Dan Campbell or someone like that.
If Dan Campbell said
"You got fire in your gut."
I could see Dan Campbell screaming that in the locker room or in the meeting room while they're grinding film.
Or like a Mike Vrabel, which obviously he got fired, but someone, like a former defensive lineman, right? You got Campbell or Vrabel or whoever screaming that. Gannon, he's just like a meh. You got fire in your gut?
He says it with a question mark too. Like,
right.
You can just
it's
hear
not
it.
Like a demand. It's a do you have fire in your gut?
It's hard to tell.
I definitely
say you
don't.
got
I'm Jonathan Gannon and I have zero drive, but you
he
might.
starts playing the rock song. It's about drive, it's about power, like thinking that's gonna hype him up.
Right. Like he's the kind of guy that like plays It's the Final Countdown while walking into a meeting. Right? Like, and then walks in very calmly and like hits pause and you got fire in your gut?
I will say this about
imagine Jonathan Gannon. I don't know. I'm a big Jonathan Gannon hater if you can't tell.
Arizona played similar to how Detroit played in their first season with Dan Campbell. They just seemed to play more physical. There just was a new start, it felt, within that organization. Now will it translate? We'll wait and see. Does Kyler Murray staying healthy help his case? It's just a waiting game, but I have fire in my gut now. I'm stoked.
I have,
right, and then
hold on. I have non-football breaking news that for sure Matt's going to enjoy this. Sam, you probably weren't watching this, so you don't know. So last night was the home run derby for the MLB All-Star game. Let's just say the national anthem was pretty low tier. It was. Have you seen it?
I have seen it.
It was not very good. Well, CBS Sports has just sent me a notification that says the national anthem singer Ingrid Andress claims she was drunk and she will go to rehab. We're going to read the article. I will read the article while we keep talking about this, and we're going to see if there is any
She
truth.
sounded drunk while she was singing.
If that's true, that's wild.
That's pretty funny.
Wild.
Okay, so I'm not as big of a Brian Daboll hater as Joel is. I had him at 20 out of 26, not high.
Okay.
I got a couple of I should say, got a couple of insights into his recruiting process and scouting processes and whatever. I liked the way that he addressed the Malik Neighbors recruiting visit. I liked that a lot when he was about to be drafted, right? And of course, they did end up drafting Malik Neighbors. So, I mean, outside of that, he's not a great coach. He did give Daniel Jones $40 million a year. But yeah. And then Dennis Allen, I had at 21. Like Joel said, the Saints are always a contender, but they're never great. So I think we can move on to C tier if no one else has anything to say.
I'm not going to lie. That national anthem last night, that felt like, I'm just going to say, if Jordan Addison was a singer and sung the national anthem,
my God.
that'd be Jordan Addison, was that performance.
The Cut has a ranking of the 5 worst national anthems. Number 5 was Roseanne Barr. I don't know if you've ever heard that rendition of the anthem. She kind of just
Not off the top of
screams
my head.
it. Carl Lewis, apparently sung at the Olympics. I've never heard it. Ingrid Andress was ranked at 3. Number 2 is Us, probably. It literally says you probably. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever tried to sing national anthem full out?
One's got to be the one at that.
And then one's
the
Fergie.
All-Star game.
And number 1 is still Fergie. So
is that the Fergie one that was at like the NBA All-Star?
Yeah, and Draymond and Steph are laughing there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say that one was horrific. That was terrible.
All right. C and B tier have the most coaches that I put.
Fair.
Matt Eberflus, Shane Steichen, Doug Peterson, Antonio Pierce, Kevin O'Connell, Robert Saleh, Todd Bowles, Dan Quinn, and D'Amico Ryans.
Todd Bowles, Tampa Bay
Bowles.
Did I spell it wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
It's funny.
So one thing I'm going to
Bowles.
say, I think Matt Eberflus needs to be in D and maybe even needs to be an unknown because of how bad of a head coach I think he is. He had, and I will argue and say, I will fight for this. I think Justin Fields had immense potential. I think he is one of the most athletic quarterbacks to ever come into the NFL. I think that he was wasted talent on the Bears. They've never developed a quarterback. I still don't think they're going to with Caleb Williams.
Jay Cutler, Bears legend.
Jay Cutler was good for a year? And then he went to, all over the league. I think he played with the Dolphins even for a little bit. But yeah, Eberflus is not, no, absolutely not. I have him at 25 out of 26. And then Robert Saleh is also not a C-tier coach. You see the weapons that team has, right? Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Breece Hall, and they even had Tyler Conklin when he was going crazy for a little bit, right?
They're stacked on paper.
Say that again?
On paper, they're a stacked team.
On paper, they have a top 10 team in the NFL. And they're horrendous year after year after year. It's an absolute dumpster fire of an organization. I have Saleh at 24. They need to completely redo that whole coaching staff. At least get rid of Saleh because that was a bad season.
You're right. I should have moved Saleh up to B. Maybe Aaron Rodgers with a full healthy season can help compensate for Robert Saleh. But
Max.
I'm going off a tier. I'm not saying your rankings are wrong. I would say Robert Saleh is a better coach than Gannon, Davis Allen, and Brian Daboll. I would
He's a
say
better coach than Gannon, but so is everybody.
Why do you think he's above everybody?
I think Dennis Allen and Brian Daboll are definitely better than Matt Eberflus and Robert Saleh.
At Matt Eberflus, maybe. I definitely jumped the gun on Eberflus just because of how well they finished last year, and thinking of everything that they got, maybe he can take it over the top and finally show he's a decent coach.
No.
That was a stretch. Robert Saleh's not a stretch, in my opinion.
If Big Lou was an NFL head coach, would he be better than Jonathan Gannon
Yes.
right now?
No.
Yes.
No.
And
Because Big Lou would be
that.
like, you got fire in your gut?
Big Lou would stumble over that entire line.
He doesn't need to talk.
Big Lou would not know how to
Just
pronounce.
stand there.
Big Lou is in the army, dude. He would be such a good coach.
Big Lou wouldn't know how to
On
pronounce
this
70%
show,
of
I
the
would want
players
Big
he
Lou
coaches
as my
names.
coach.
Yeah, that was a that's.
Big Lou's not even on, and we're still memeing on him.
We just miss him.
I am telling you guys, Big Lou would be a good coach. I'm being serious. You guys think I'm joking. I'm not joking.
He'd be a good leader, but I don't know if he'd be a good coach of football.
Like schematically.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Okay, maybe. Okay.
He's got the leader part of him
He's
down.
got the Dan
he's got
Campbell
the
heart.
part of him down.
It's just there's more to it than just giving persuasive speeches.
Sure.
That's what we thought Kevin O'Connell was, until we realized that he can yell at the team. in Philly.
Exactly.
That was nice to see. Because
It
that's
was a
how I
good
felt
change
too.
of scenery.
I had to go check on my college football 25 and see if it's done yet.
You get it. This guy's rich.
All right, well, he pieces out
$30
I'll go
extra
through-
dollars laying around.
I'll go through your C list and compare it to my numbers. Matt Eberflus, out of my list, he was I had him at 26. We don't really know. The Bears are bad. Tough to tell. I went to hire him. Shane Steichen, I had him pretty low, I think, as well. I had him at 22. I feel like a small sample size. Colts could be good. Anthony Richardson was hurt too, though, so don't really know. He's kind of an unknown for me. Doug Peterson, I had him at 16. He's won a Super Bowl and had lots of experience, but as far as now, I don't really know what he has left. Antonio Pierce, I had higher up. I had Antonio Pierce at 14. I'd like to start a team with Antonio Pierce. He's a good leader. He knows football. He cares a lot about his players. You'll see that in the documentary too, especially toward the end of it. There's kind of he talks about have you gotten to the part where they fire Josh McDaniels? Okay, then as the series gets later, there's some interviews with I almost said Zach Taylor because he's listed under Antonio Pierce on my list. They talk about Antonio Pierce and he talks, and he's just a good leader. I like him a lot. So that's that. Kevin O'Connell, I had at number 13. He's good, but he's not that good. I feel like I just have to see more out of him. He's been weird too, because it's like the first year was really good, and then last year was not good, but they also just had a lot of other weird things going on too. So we'll just kind of have to see. So that's Kevin O'Connell for me. Robert Saleh, I had down at 19. The vibes are weird with the Jets. He's weird. Aaron Rodgers is weird. The team on paper, like we said, is good, but it's just strange out in the Big Apple. So that's that. Todd Bowles. I had Todd Bowles at 21. He's just kind of a guy. He's just out there. He coaches, whatever. And then Dan Quinn I already talked about earlier, and D'Amico Ryans I had pretty high. I had D'Amico Ryans at number 7. I like D'Amico Ryans and did really good. It was small sample size because he's only had 1 year with Houston, but he did very, very well with Stroud last year and did very good with that Niners defense in the years he was in San Francisco. If I was starting a team, I would really like D'Amico Ryans, and I know the Vikings had a lot of interest in him, as did I. So I mostly agree with your list.
I'm going to have to get off.
All right. No problem, brother. Take care. We'll see you.
Adios.
So, yeah, I mostly agree with it. I'd have Antonio Pierce a little higher and D'Amico Ryans I have higher, but otherwise pretty fair, I think, at least. Anything you disagree with on that?
No. Rip through these real quick.
Yes, sir.
Got some homework need to finish up.
Good.
My B tier is Sean McDermott, Zach Taylor, Kevin Stefanski, Sean Payton. It hurt to put him there, but given his record, he has been pretty good.
Mhm.
Dan Campbell, Matt LaFleur, and Mike McDaniel.
That's good. I had Sean McDermott. I kind of had him high, and then I kept moving him down. I put him at 8. He's been successful with the Bills, but it's just kind of weird out there because they've had opportunities, but they've never been able to get over the hump. And now their core, they still have Josh Allen, but the rest of the team is just kind of dispersing now. So I think this is going to be a good year where we see what the Bills really have in them, if they're cooked or if there's any hope still. Zach Taylor, I had him at 15. He's just kind of, people don't really talk about him. The Bengals have been good, but I don't know. He's just there. Kevin Stefanski, I've always liked. I had him at number 9. Coach of the year. I think, did he win Coach of the Year this past year? He's won like 3 times in his career. They had like 4 quarterbacks and Joe Flacco this past year. I still like Kevin Stefanski. And if the Vikings, if they would have gotten rid of Mike Zimmer and promoted Kevin Stefanski, that would have worked so well. But obviously, in hindsight, we didn't know that. But that's that. He got away from the Vikings. Sean Payton, I had at 17. Been historically successful with the Saints, won a Super Bowl there. But Denver has been weird out there, especially with the Russell Wilson. That was strange, all of that. And then he took over for Hackett. That was all weird too, but whatever. Dan Campbell, I put him at number 6. I just like Dan Campbell a lot. Hard Knocks, this show now. He's a good leader. He inspires a team. I enjoy him a lot. Matt LaFleur, I had at number 10. He's been good, especially last year. I think the Packers, no one really expected them to be as good as they were because they were in kind of a transition stage going from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, but they were really good. Jordan Love developed pretty well. We'll have to see if he can carry that into this year in the future. So I like Matt LaFleur. And Mike McDaniel, I had at number 11. He has been good. And yeah, that's just kind of that. Pretty likable guy, young too, so got a lot of years ahead of him, probably as a coach if he continues to be a coach. So that's my list right there of those guys. Any major disagreements or not really?
No.
All right, that's valid.
My A tier of coaches go Mike McCarthy, John Harbaugh, Nick Sirianni, Mike Tomlin, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. Mike McCarthy, the only reason he's in the A tier is he's had a lot of success in terms with Green Bay. Not too much success with Dallas, but they always have good records. They always, they're in the thick of it, always in the NFC. That was the main reason for that. But in terms of a coach being fired, he would be one of the first just because Dallas – there's way more expectation than jobs in Indianapolis and Jacksonville. Like, you come to Dallas as a head coach, your main goal is to win a Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl or bust almost every year. No one's under more scrutiny than Mike McCarthy is as a head coach. I'm going to give him his flowers here, but at the same time, he needs to deliver to the Dallas faithful.
True. I had Mike McCarthy a little lower. I had him at 18. He's pretty much for the
just
same
a teeny
thing.
bit.
Pretty much for the same thing you just said, though. He's been historically good with the Packers, and they were a really good team for a long time.
He won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, now with Dallas, it's just every year, I feel like, especially even during Mike McCarthy, Jason Garrett, all the eras, especially recently, I've felt this way. I've always thought before the season, the Cowboys on paper are a pretty good team. They could be good this year. Like, they have a good offense. They have a good defense. They have good special teams. They actually have a chance. And then the season happens and it just gets strange and they lose some games. And I feel like I'm always left scratching my head. Like, I thought they actually had a chance this year to be kind of decent, but then they just never do. So current Mike Tomlin, historical Mike McCarthy, I'd put pretty high. Current Mike McCarthy, kind of strange. So that's why I have him a little lower. John Harbaugh, I had him at number 4, just above his brother. He's historically been really good with that Ravens team. They've never, in his whole era there, they've never really been bad before. They've never had stretches of bad. They're consistently contenders, but they're better than the Vikings. So they're like actual contenders to like for the playoffs and into a playoff run pretty much every year. They've been good. Nick Sirianni, I had him pretty low. I don't like Nick Sirianni. Maybe it's personal bias. I had him all the way down at number 20. I don't like Nick Sirianni. The team's been good. He's just kind of a strange guy. And I feel like the vibes in Philadelphia under the Sirianni era have almost been like a cult. Like they're just weird. The players are strange about it too. And I don't know, or maybe it's just because he's not that likable. I think a lot of people can probably agree on that. Nick Sirianni's not a likable guy. He's got a very slappable face, in my opinion. And so, yeah, I had him pretty low, but I think that might be personal bias too, because he's built a good team. But that's that. We also talked about last year how their defense completely fell off, and he was talked about by some people as being on the hot seat too, which we just went from like he's a really good coach to all of a sudden, if they don't turn it around, is there actually a chance he could get fired? That was quite the surprise, but whatever. And then I'll go to these other ones here. Sean McVay, I had him at number 2. Great leader. The Rams have been kind of bad recently, but they also, that's just, I think, some of their team construction, how they went all in, got the Super Bowl. It worked out. Before they went in with the all-in approach, they were a good team as well. When they first moved out to LA and hired him, they were a successful team. Then they went go big or go home, and it worked. And now they've been just kind of meh since then, but they also haven't had a great team either. So I like Sean McVay a lot. He's, my number 2 head coach in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan, I had at number 3. San Francisco's been good. They've had good defenses. He's a really good offensive mind as well, as we've seen. And we've talked about it before, but the fact that they were able to move off Trey Lance so fast and it wasn't a catastrophe is crazy. Like no one lost their jobs, or at least not really. And they were able to, moved all the way up. Top 3 pick, didn't work out. They were able to move forward, and everyone forgot about that. The fact that happened. Some of that also might be luck with Brock Purdy just turning out as well as he did. That does factor into it, but that's that. So I'd have him as my number 3. I feel like for Kyle Shanahan to win a Super Bowl, I almost think he'd have to go to another team. I feel like the Niners have reached their peak. They've been good. They've reached the NFC Championship and now the Super Bowl a couple times, but they just can't get over Mahomes and the Chiefs. I think that for Kyle Shanahan to win a Super Bowl, and that core's getting older too every year, they're just kind of, I think they're running out of time, and they're just a time bomb, and it's about to explode, and they're going to have to dismantle it soon. I think that if Shanahan ever wants to win a Super Bowl, I think he has to go somewhere else, to a different team, and just kind of start over. That's just my opinion. I think the Niners peaked, but that's just me. And then I don't know how many you have in your last tier. I think I'm only missing. I don't know if I think I skipped Mike Tomlin, by the way. I had Mike Tomlin. I think I had Mike Tomlin I have him at number 12. He's good, but he's good. He's not like outstanding. There's some other like recent coaches I'd have over him, but I think Mike Tomlin's another Viking who got away. Former Vikings DC, and then I don't know if let him go is the right term, but went out to Pittsburgh, and he's been around since 2007, hasn't had a losing season. They've been a really, really good team. The only reason I didn't have Mike Tomlin higher is because they've been good. Lots of winning seasons, lots of playoff appearances, and they've won, I think, 1 Super Bowl in its time there, maybe 2, but I think just 1. Is that they overall, I feel like for as long as he's been there, as many years he's been there, as many winning seasons they have, I feel like he should have more than 1 Super Bowl. But he doesn't. I think that's the one reason I didn't have him higher on my list, is because I feel like he should have more to show with the success he's had. But whatever. Very good coach still. Like him a lot. So that's that. So I don't know what's in your top tier there. I think I hit everyone else, so I don't think I missed anyone, unless I did. So I think you must only have one fella up there. Is that correct? Or am I?
Is the screen? Will the screen work? I unveiled it.
I'll
Yeah, it's Andy Reid.
Andy Reid, yeah. He's also my number one at the top of my list. This can be seen, I think. Andy Reid was at the top of my list. I don't know anyone that doesn't have Andy Reid at the top of their list. He's won Super Bowls, successful team, successful, especially in KC. And he had, I mean, Philadelphia, that was before I kind of watched football, so I can't really talk about Andy Reid pre-KC because that wasn't my watching era. But yeah, especially him in KC, I mean, a lot of it also is Mahomes, just best player in the NFL. Excuse me. Crazy, crazy, wicked talented. But oh yeah, I think everyone would have Andy Reid atop their list. He's a mastermind, wonderful coach. Would love to start my team with him if I could. So that's our list right there. For anyone that wants to see my list, I don't know if you can read it. I'll hold it up. Maybe you can read it. Can't. If you want to pause it, folks, you can. There's my list from 1 on the top to 32 down in that region. So there we go. That is that. So that's our NFL head coaches good list. We had some disagreements. That's just kind of how it goes, you know. If Big Lou was on here, he probably would have put Jonathan Gannon maybe like number 5 overall just because he's Big Lou. I should stop memeing on Big Lou. I need to take a break from the Big Lou bully. All right, we'll get into predictions to close out this episode. So here's our predictions. A couple have come off the board. We've got a couple new ones. Sam Z didn't make any, but that's all right. I'll kick it off with me. I've had a historical start to the season, as we've seen. I said this. We haven't done this in a while, so some of these are old predictions. I said the Florida Panthers would win the Cup in 7 games, and they did. They lost Game 6. I think we made those predictions before Game 6. Edmonton went on to win Game 6. Florida pulled out Game 7 and won the Stanley Cup final. I also said at least one Viking player or coach would be arrested or publicly pulled over, so like we'd have public knowledge of it. This offseason, we were kind of running. Whoops, I just closed out of the tab by accident. I'll pull it back up. So yeah, we were running out of time. Thought maybe it wouldn't happen. And then lo and behold, Jordan Addison came in, saved my prediction, and was arrested, as we talked about earlier in the episode. So that's that. As we move down the way, you had one prediction off the board, Stanley Cup Final 1.
Yeah, I just said the Oilers would win.
Yep. As we talked about, Florida won in 7. Sam O said the Florida Panthers would win in 6. They did not. And then he also said the U.S. men's national soccer team would lose in the quarterfinal of the Copa America tournament. I don't watch soccer at all.
They didn't make it out of group play.
I was going to say, they didn't even like make it to the playoffs.
They didn't make it to the knockout stage.
Yeah, that. So that was kind of that. So we look over here. I have a commanding lead. Unprecedented start to the season so far by me. I also have some probably bad predictions on here too, especially that CeeDee Lamb one. That's not happening. So we'll see. Followed by Big Lou. He's only got 2 off the board. He's also been gone in Oklahoma as far as we know. We don't really know where he is anymore. Big Lou will be back in, he said, beginning of August. So hopefully in a few weeks we can have Big Lou back again. Let's look at the other predictions. Sam O has just under 30%. And Sam Z with about 15, and you cover your eyeballs. Pretty tough. But hey, there's always time to rebound. You can be the Lions, where like they were not this past year, but the year before, 1-6 start, and then they finished like 7-9 or 8-9, whatever that year. You can just pull a Detroit, I believe. Based on these predictions, do you think you have the possibility to be a 2022 Detroit Lions?
Probably not, but I won't be under 20%.
Malik Neighbors is not happening. he will not win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I did that before the draft, so
I know.
that's my excuse.
If it was post-draft, you wouldn't even made the prediction. So
yeah,
that's that. We'll go through.
Just rip them off.
I can rip them, yeah. So I've got 3 predictions here. I think they're all football related. They're, as far as I remember, all Vikings related, but we're going to see in a minute here. All right, my first prediction, I'm going to put a time parameter on this because I didn't yet. Jordan Addison will be suspended, but not by the NFL. It will be by the Minnesota Vikings. It's kind of rare for this to happen, so this is kind of a long touchdown pass here. It's pretty rare we get this, but we have had it happen before. I'm trying to think. I think the Vikings did this kind of recently at one point. They suspended Wes Phillips, but that was its own ordeal too last year. But that was like during the spring, so it doesn't really matter. Not that big of a deal. He got 3 weeks suspension for, I think, a DWI, if I remember right. But it's different when it's not during the season. It's not a huge deal. We have had teams, there have been instances, though, of where teams suspend the player and not the league to teach their player a lesson. I think this is a chance that the Vikings could do this to show Jordan Addison, you need to calm down, grow up. And if you're not, we're going to take action. So we'll see. We're going to say, I should put a time parameter by, I don't want to leave this I'm going to say the end of the season. I don't want to leave this lingering on the board too long. So we're going to say by the end of the season it'll happen. Or we'll get announcement of it by the end of the season. One of those. The second prediction, J.J. McCarthy, who's currently unsigned, will remain unsigned until at least August 1st. So there's rumors that he's going to hold out. We'll see if that actually happens because he's looking for a signing bonus up front. Either way, I think we're going to give it till at least August 1st. The players report to training camp Sunday, July 21st, so this upcoming Sunday. And the vets report on Tuesday the 23rd. So we got a few weeks on this prediction. I think it'll get done during training camp eventually. But the Vikings have no precedent because they've never had a top 10 quarterback. So they're like Ricky Bobby. They don't know what to do. But we'll see. So that's that. My final prediction, next summer's Netflix documentary series will not be about quarterbacks or wide receivers, but it will contain defensive backs in some way. That'll be the position group they highlight, corners and or safeties. I think that's what they're going to do is just look for a new position group every year. Because since they couldn't get enough quarterbacks for season 2, then that's when they transition to receivers. I think that just kind of might be the way to go now is keep finding a new group, go all around the football field. I was between either they will do this or they will do like Netflix trenches where it's offense or defensive linemen. I feel like if you followed like one team's group of like 5 offensive linemen, I feel like that could be kind of interesting to see how a lineman get beat up and prepare and that kind of a thing. But we'll see. Maybe that can be in 2 years. So it's between those 2 position groups, but it will be Netflix series, either corners and or safeties, defensive backs in some way will be their highlight focus. So there's my 3 predictions. Over here, we've got Mr. Matt.
Given how historically bad I am, I'm honestly just doing predictions, so the result ends up not happening. Granted, this one, hopefully the Yankees have gone on a historic losing streak since this prediction has been made. I generally want this one to happen, and the rest, well, we'll find out. All-Star game for the MLBs tonight. I think Jose Ramirez will win All-Star game MVP. It's really just one player just has to have a magical moment, and I think Jose Ramirez will be the player to have it. Not too much thought within that. College football prediction to upset Samo. I think Ohio State's winning the Big Ten. I'm not going to go out and call them national champs or make that prediction right now, but they are the favorite. This is one of the best Ohio State teams we have seen in a long, long time. This team might be better than the 2014 national championship team. So as long as everything goes right, I have no doubt that Ohio State will win the Big Ten and potentially win it all. I just realized I didn't make a final prediction. I left it black.
That's all right. Either you can come up with one, or you just
I'll leave it and save myself from another red. But
okay.
So I ended up doing 2 predictions. Oopsie
Got
daisy.
you. Yeah, that is real easy for you. So that does it for this. We can probably take this off screen now. That's it for our wonderful episode we had today. We thank you all for watching, and hopefully we'll be back again next week with some more fresh Vikings content. Maybe we'll do like a players to look for in training camp or something, underrated players, that kind of a thing, or players on the trade block, roster fringe players that could get traded. I don't know. We'll find something to talk about. So that's that. Otherwise, that does it for this episode, unless you have any final thoughts. All right, that does it. Thanks for watching. Peace out. And as always, SKOL Vikings. We'll see you guys hopefully next week again.